Alrighty, there we go. Uh, let's see. Into watching. Here's my share. All right, we're boomering it pretty good right now. So let's see. And just want to share my link. All right, we're live. All right. All right, we are live. Let's go. We're going to go right to here. Oh, why am I not broadcasting?
Well, no, you are broadcasting.
You're live.
Oh, okay. I am live. All righty. So we boomered that pretty good. All right. Let's hide this. And we're going to start right here. All right. Let's cancel that and get back on track. Thank you for joining us here at Indie Dave Comics. I, of course, am Indie Dave. And we are here talking to Crystal McGhee, whose project you just saw the trailer for, The Good Night. Oh, we've got a few questions for her that hopefully you joined us. You'll have some questions for her too. Project looks really good. I'm going to give you my first impressions based on some of the pictures I saw. I like the thing with the teddy bear. I saw the teddy bear, and we see it looks like what is like a ghost or something. That's like I said. These are all initial impressions. Looks like a ghost, and he's got like a cape on, or whatever. And it looks it almost looks like a kid's story. But then you look at the bear's face, and he's got like the kind of growly face.
Exactly.
All right. So the first impression when you first look at it, you kind of think, oh, it's kind of a kid's story. And then some kind of wraith or some kind of ghost or whatever, and you see the teeth, and you get kind of a deeper impression. So why don't you go ahead and Crystal, and tell us a little bit about your story?
Well, The Good Night, it's basically the story of Alexander, and he is an immortal knight that got turned into a teddy bear. And he's sort of like a displaced in time. So this comic kind of starts out kind of modern day, current year. And he is basically put in charge of this kid and basically protecting him and all of that. So yeah.
All right. So who are the main characters? What's he protecting them from?
The main character is Sir Alexander, and he's the knight, and he is charged by Eric to protect his son Jack, which is the kid that you guys saw in the trailer, and he sort of gets kidnapped. It's kind of a complicated relationship between Eric and Queen Belladonna, this lady that's come to kidnap his son. So basically, Alexander ends up losing the kid, and he has to call sort of his longtime foe to come and help him, along with Eric, Jack's dad, to retrieve him.
Okay, cool. How long have you been working on this project?
Well, I have some storyboards because originally I wanted this to be like a stop motion animated film.
Okay.
And I did the storyboards in like a 2014. And so it's been a while in the making. It's kind of been in different forms, but this is sort of its final form, as you say.
All right, somebody stole your idea. They called it Ted. They put it in.
Oh no! Oh jeez,
Yeah.
Ted. Nice.
All right. So, what's your background as far as art and this kind of stuff?
Well, my background, I started out and am currently still a script doctor. So I do that freelance now, but basically you can do that through either a company or people, just kind of, it's a service you provide. But basically, I will fix people's scripts, and whether it's film or television, and get it ready to actually be pitched or optioned to a studio. Um, so yeah.
Have you ever had anything that you fixed up that got brought to a studio?
Yes, I did. I did a project, and I've got to be really vague. There's a lot of NDAs with this
Oh yeah, yeah.
type
We
of
don't want
stuff.
you getting in trouble.
Yeah. But what I can tell you is that it was by somebody who does television, and they've done a lot of sci-fi television shows that a lot of you guys might have seen.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
they're currently doing a feature film script. And I went through it, and it was over 100 pages. But I ended up fixing about 2/3 of the script and fixing that up, and it is currently being optioned to some studios.
Well, that's cool. Now,
Yeah.
this one, have you ever done comic books before?
I have helped other people fix their comic book scripts because, there's a lot of comics that are getting turned into television shows.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually, one thing I've noticed is that there's a lot of people who will come to screenwriters and they want to have us basically create comics or fix up their script and transform it into something that works better for comics.
So, is this adapting something that's already like a movie that's already made, and they come to you, or they come to somebody and say, "Hey, can we turn this into a comic?" And then
Yeah,
you would
exactly.
adjust that.
Yep, that's basically it. Or they'll come to me with an idea, and I've turned it into something that translates well for the artist. That way they can do that and turn it into a comic.
Well, that's cool.
Yep.
Uh,
And I have another comic after this. The Good Night kind of starts off events in this particular shared universe that we're creating. And I created another book. It's called Song of the Siren. And it basically takes place after the events of The Good Night. And there's like a lot of loose ends. And The Good Night actually bridges the gap to the other series that we'll have coming out in the future.
does it have is it like a carryover character that goes into that one,
Yes,
or okay?
correct.
So it wouldn't be necessarily the main character.
No,
Okay.
it'll be integral characters. I'd
Mhm.
definitely say secondary cast, but you'll see them cross over, so it will be pretty cool. And that one's already done. The Good Night basically just bridges everything, so you'll know where characters are going after this, and you'll kind of get the timeline of where everything takes place.
So it's almost like I don't want to say it's like a keystone. When you read the later issues, different comics, if you've read this one, you'll be able to say, okay, I see how this relates and how
Yeah,
that relates.
exactly.
And how these two comics would connect through this one.
Yep, exactly. Because there's one character, Jeffrey, which is Alexander's longtime, I guess you could say, foe or rival, and he kind of calls upon him. And Jeffrey's basically, I guess you could say, like a soul eater. He basically consumes souls, and he's doing this for. He made a deal with the devil, so basically Jeffrey has to bring him so many souls, or else he'll eventually suffer the fate of others in hell. So he wants a more favorable position, and he wants to use these different dark black magic powers that he has. So in order to fully get what he wants, he has to bring him so many souls. And so Alexander kind of calls this guy, and he is like, "I need your help getting back the kid, Jack."
So how much of this whole universe did you plot out before you did this first story?
Everything, actually.
You did a whole Tolkien?
Yeah. There's so much that's been planned, and it's all been written. So it all there's definitely a direction.
Okay, so this is all planned out. When did you already ask you how long you've been working on this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So did you wrote the script and you came up with the idea and you wrote the script. Who you got for an artist? Are you doing the art or is someone else working on that?
Someone else is working on that. He's an artist out of Brazil, Francisco Nardi, and hopefully I didn't butcher his name. And if so, sorry about that. But he's fantastic.
And how did you get a hold of him? Did you just was it a Tumblr thing or?
It was actually I was referred to him, and yeah, pretty cool. He did some other projects, comic projects for other people. And I was looking for somebody with the kind of an Alex Ross type vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, pretty cool.
Alrighty. So I saw you did. Okay, so you're. Let's see. I got you down as a writer, director, producer.
Yep.
So, what other kinds of projects have you done before this? I know you said you were a script doctor.
Yep.
You strictly just do writing and directing projects?
Well, I do a little bit of everything. Currently, I have a feature that I helped doing assistant directing, as well as some sound production, boom operator, and stuff like that. And it's currently in the film festival circuit, and it's called Red Hand. And it's basically it's about this Native American character that's kind of goes back in time, think kind of like the Terminator,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of plot. Yeah, and I've done different shorts and stuff like that. Just wear a lot of hats, you know.
Oh, that's cool. Let's see. So did you go to school for any of this stuff? What did you go to school for, or did you go to school?
No film school, that actually.
Okay,
Yep.
just kind of fell into it.
Self-taught, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Let's see. So, all right. So, what's your history with comic books? Have you always been into comic books, or is this something you just since you were doing scripts, you figured, well, maybe this will go in?
Well, I've been a fan of comic books for a long time. I actually got into it from my dad.
Oh,
He
that's cool.
had a massive collection, new and old, like it was insane. He had a lot of the Todd McFarlane, like Spider-Man run, and just like so much stuff. A lot of early Image, Founder, comics that they're putting out, a Spawn, all that good stuff. And I've been following comics closely, and yeah, been a
How long?
fan for a while.
So how long do you collect or do you just
Yes.
kind of?
I do collect. I have a lot of different issues. I really love collecting first appearances.
Okay.
So when I can, really love doing that. There's just something about seeing a character for the first time, and especially if it's well executed, it's just like really timeless.
Do you have a favorite character?
Ooh, that's a tough question. There's so many, but I definitely have to say on the Marvel side, I have a couple. I'd definitely say Spider-Man, Namor, Doctor Strange, excuse me, Fantastic Four, and there's just numerous X-Men.
What would you say is your kind of biggest influence on writing the comic you're working on now?
Ooh, let me think. I'd probably have to say a lot of stuff that Garth Ennis has
Oh,
written,
okay, yeah.
Preacher, all that good stuff. I really love it. Just the way that he lays out the stories. I really like it. And also, as far as tone, like the original Conan comics,
Yeah.
yeah, those were fantastic. I absolutely love those. Just the art was always great, and wow, yeah.
Do you ever get into any of the novels or anything like that?
Not the novels, but the films for sure.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
jeez.
All right. So it was Schwarzenegger or Momoa then.
Schwarzenegger. That one with Jason Momoa, it was missing something.
Yeah,
I think it something script wise, maybe a couple casting issues, possibly.
I remember watching the movie and I remember that he was in it, but I don't remember much about the movie itself. I think
Yeah,
Momoa looks great for a lot of parts.
yeah,
I think he was pretty good in Aquaman.
yeah. I
He,
saw that.
he looks great for a lot of parts. Like I think he'd make a great Lobo,
Hmm.
but I
Wish they would have used him for Lobo.
yeah, I know. I think they totally miscast. They should have made a Lobo movie. Like I said, I liked him in Aquaman. I don't think he's a terrible actor or anything like that, but he wasn't really memorable in those ones that I saw.
Yeah, and I think the problem with Aquaman for me is that this one that they put out in the films, it's a lot more reminiscent of Namor than it is the traditional Aquaman. So it's just very odd. Like all you have to do is put on, the pointy ears and then just put Namor on the title.
When I was a kid, I always thought Namor was just Mr. Spock in the water. That was my whole
That's
impression of.
nice.
I mean, I never really got into the character. I just, oh, he looks like Mr. Spock, and how
Yeah.
come Fish Guy has wings on his feet?
Oh yeah. Oh geez. And I have almost every Namor run. It's been an undertaking. I've tried to collect all of them. Now the ones that are like early 70s, that's a little bit
Yeah.
more hard to come by. Oh geez. It's just a chore trying to track down all of the floppies.
Yeah, I used to, let's see, I collected from the early 90s. Actually, the first comic that I collected was like 1986. I
Hmm.
was, at the time, I was like 11 years old. That was the first comic I bought to collect. And I never really had like anything that I focused on. It was like I'd go in. I can tell you when I was a kid, like all the Marvel and DC stuff kind of looked the same to me
Hmm.
from through a kid's eyes. And the first comic I bought was a Ninja Turtles comic. It was original Ninja
Nice.
Turtles. So
Black and
so
white?
yeah, it was issue 10.
Nice.
I
Yeah,
remember
I
specifically. I remember the
absolutely love
cover. I
it.
remember issue number 10, and I got a few back issues from that one. Uh,
Mhm.
and then I collected those for a while, and I never really read because I'd look at the Marvel comics and I'd be like, they all look the same. It's all basically Superman and Spider-Man to me at the time. So I liked collecting the different stuff, the indie stuff when I was a kid. And then one of my friends he had some New Mutants comics, and it was at the Fall of the
Oh,
Mutants was
nice.
the run. And so I read a couple of those, and then from there I got into that and the X-Men, and I got into Marvel from there. I was never, as a kid, I was never really a DC guy, and now I'd stopped collecting for like 20 years, more than 20 years, and when I picked it up again a few years ago, now there's more DC characters I like than Marvel characters. It's like I don't even know the characters anymore.
Yeah. I think it's also a quality type thing going on because DC's producing more quality content comics wise.
Yeah, I think the
So it's a
art.
lot more appealing.
Yeah, the art is definitely a higher quality.
Oh yeah.
Overall, I mean, not that I mean, there's good stuff. There's, I mean, a lot of people's like, oh no, I won't buy Marvel anymore. And, that's fine. I know people have their tastes, and I know some of those issues. For me, it's like, well, this one's okay. I like that Venom run's doing pretty good, and
Oh yeah.
there's a couple of other ones that I like.
I
Uh,
think is it called the Immortal Hulk? I think people have been saying that's good, but I'm not. I
I
might
think
check it out later.
I got one issue because my comic shop does this thing where they have, I guess when they buy collections, they've got all a bunch of comics that are 50 cent dollar dollar rat kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So what they do is, and I'll go in with my kid. My kid will pick up. They have like those little plastic eggs, like Easter eggs, and there's a little number in it. And you open up the egg, and you get the number, and they have a certain comic stuff in the back designated for that number.
Oh,
So
that's interesting.
yeah, so it's a way for them to get rid of, I think, a lot of their extra stock and things that just didn't sell. Because there was I think it was Avengers No Surrender. It was one of the ones with the cover that came out last year. Hmm?
Imaged too.
Yeah, yeah. I guess some of their damaged ones maybe they
Oh
do it
yeah.
too. But it was one of the
My
ones with the.
comic shop has an issue with getting a lot of damaged comics.
I went in last week to get Conan #1, the new one,
Hmm.
and I'd forgotten to. Usually, if I give them a little shout out on Twitter, give them a shout out on Twitter and just say, "Hey, can you put that one aside for me?" They'll do it. Put it in my box. But I forgot to do that, and I went in thinking, "Oh, they'll have a bunch of them." And I went in, they're like, "No, we sold out. We had a whole bunch of damages, and then we sold all the rest of them." So I was like, "Oh man!" So now I didn't even have it. So now they put me in when they get reorders. But and
Yeah,
then I made
it's
sure
like
I made sure. I guess there's going to be two other Conan series coming out, so I made sure I was on the list for those.
yes, they're like King Conan, like they're
Yep,
doing a separate
King
series
Conan
for
and I
that.
think Savage Sword might be the other one.
Okay. Because yeah, my shop every week they're just like damaged, damaged.
Oh,
It all comes in damaged, and I've even come early enough to see the boxes, and it's like comic after comic just bent. It's
yeah.
insane.
My my shop does they'll do a little Twitter video they'll put out that shows what came out for the week, and they'll just kind of walk through us. Oh, we got this came in, this came in, this came in, and a lot of times they'll be like, oh, we got a bunch of damages, so you might not have supposed to be in your box. So yeah,
Yeah.
that happened with Conan. It
Ye-
happened with Conan this week, but sometimes they'll be like they'll order and they'll get a whole bunch in, and then most of them are damaged. And I can't imagine that's good for the store. That
I couldn't. I don't wouldn't think so.
and I
And
don't know if it's Diamond's fault. Whether I don't know how they pack them. I don't know if they just kind of throw them in and just or I don't know if it's whoever delivers them. I don't know if it's their fault.
like I think it's a little bit, and I have some family members that have done different things in shipping, and especially if it's going through UPS and stuff like that. I've been to UPS shipping like facilities,
Hmm.
and it's just kind of like an assembly line, and people are tossing boxes, stuff like that. You definitely need to have like cardboard dividers, stuff like that, in order to protect what's being shipped. And from what I've seen, like my comic shop personally, there's not much. They just kind of stack all the comics in there, and there's really no dividers, anything like that. Like even if you could possibly like bag and board the comics before putting it in, that could definitely reduce at least some of the damages.
And also, I imagine playing devil's advocate, I imagine it probably increase the price of shipping as well. Plus the diamond, I guarantee, if it's done at Diamond facility, then they're going to charge a premium for that.
Yeah.
And they already, I imagine, charge way too much.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also an issue of their what they're making the comics out of now. Like a lot of it feels cheaper. Cheaper materials. And if you use cheaper materials like that, obviously it's not going to hold up as well. So that could also be a factor as well.
I don't know, so they got the glossier paper. I don't see. I know, like with the newsprint, I'm always pushing Alterna. With the newsprint, I don't know if they come in damaged because I don't think they order that much at my store. I get almost everything that Alterna puts out, and it's the comics themselves are $1.50, $1.99. So I don't know how they pack and ship those. I also don't know if they buy those direct from Alterna or they go through Diamond because it's such a small order.
Yeah, my comic shop, they don't have any alternate products, so I always have to order direct.
You get it right from the Etsy page.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't had to do that yet. My store's been pretty good about if I ask for something, they'll get it for me. I had an issue right now with Antarctic. I got a couple of books that I ordered months ago,
Ooh,
and
which ones?
I ordered Rags #2, and I ordered Black Hops #1. I still haven't got either one of those, but I got Rags #3 today in my box, and I saw somebody else got Rags today, so I guess that one shipped on time. But my #2, maybe they ran out. I mean, I'm not trying to put Antarctic down for it. I don't know what the issue is. Maybe Diamond had an issue with it, or
Well, I think Antarctic, don't they have like small print runs?
yeah. And again, it might have sold out, but I just don't know. Like I said, I have orders in, and I asked them about it today because I got the Rags thing. I got Rags 3 in, and now I have the first one. I have the second. I have the third one. I don't have the second one. So I don't want to. Now I don't want to read it until I get the second one in.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
So hopefully they'll send out a little reminder, like I don't know how that works. Say, hey, where's this issue at?
Yeah, definitely.
So let's see. So where do you stand on your comic book politics?
Like, what do you mean specifically?
Like nobody really cares. Nobody really cares who you voted for. But like, are you pro Comicsgate? Are you anti Comicsgate? Are you neutral? Not really care.
Well, I definitely say pro Comicsgate. And just as, a comic book fan myself, I've noticed a lot of just kind of the quality for sure has taken a big hit. And like as far as what I pick up now, it's basically Alterna, which I get direct, and a couple different issues here and there, like Conan, I picked that up, and just kind of back issues. The only series that I've really been collecting is the Magic Order, and that was Mark Miller, his series with Netflix, and a couple things that people might recommend, but overall, like the storytelling, it's vastly different than it used to be. Like used to, you get the X-Men go on like an adventure, and then the story kind of wrapped up at the end, but then the next issue there'd be like branching storylines where stuff continues. And now it's just like I don't know if you watch anime at all.
A little bit. I actually,
But
just the only one I really watched. I watched Goblin Slayer. I kept up with that one.
nice.
Other than that, I really had, and it was everybody was kind of like on it when it first came out. So I was like, well, fine, I'll check it out. And I liked it. I liked it pretty good. I'm not a big anime guy.
Yeah.
My kids are. So
Well, in anime, there's this genre called slice of life. And I don't know if you've heard about it, but basically it's just anime characters, and it's like them doing mundane stuff. kind of like a day in the life. And so you basically see them like cook food, like play with their dog, and there's no real plot or like storylines. Like maybe there'll be a slight reoccurring element, but for the most part, it's literally a day in the life of somebody doing ordinary, mundane things.
I think my daughter likes that.
Yeah.
That's
That's what it kind of feels like a lot of comic books now. It's just kind of like mundane stuff.
they're going with a lifestyle brand. That's I
Yeah.
know Marvel. I heard something about that. They're trying to do a lifestyle brand as opposed to, escapist adventure type
Yeah.
stuff.
Because I mean, like, take Ninja Turtles. Like, they go on adventures, they're fighting like ninjas.
Yeah,
And, there's hackers and all sorts of other stuff going on. But it's fun. It's an adventure.
now
And
I can see every once in a while doing something like, I mean, they're always on adventures, they're always doing this or that. Every once in a while, you just kind of do hey, they're hanging out at the house. This but you
yeah,
got to make it fun and you got to make it interesting.
yeah,
And you can't do that every time, but every once in a while is
exactly.
kind of a break. I can see that.
Yeah, like it's nice to have a downtime, but the downtime is like every single issue.
Exactly. That's
Oh,
it.
gee.
Oh my God. Now he's, every, it's like they're, all right. Now everything is, when they're not fighting bad guys, they're at a restaurant or
Yeah,
they're at the mall
exactly.
or they're at home doing whatever.
Yeah,
That's
and like
moping
all of
around on the
that.
couch.
Oh, geez, yeah, and just like the random like food references. And I'm originally from New York, so a lot of people are into food and all of that type of stuff. Uh, but it's just like so over the top and like it has no purpose.
Yeah.
Like it's not even a character. Like you could say, oh well, maybe if the book had like some character and they kind of like do all the cooking and then you make like a bit
Yeah,
with that, but it's
exactly.
but
Uh,
it's just literally sitting. It's like in television when you're trying to pad the runtime of a show. Maybe you've noticed like a lot of times they'll have a scene where they're sitting down in like a restaurant.
hmm
And in that restaurant, they're basically talking about these different plot points or they're discussing someone. And that's basically just there for filler. Unless the writer is really, like Tarantino, like he
hmm
has scenes that are just sitting around. But
Oh, you
somewhere.
digitized.
Oh, is it better now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Tarantino, he'll have scenes where it's like some, but the dialogue is actually moving the story forward.
Well, you get the famous scenes. He does a lot of
Yeah.
like, was it Reservoir Dogs, where they talk about tipping, and then there was the whole
Yeah.
conversation about Madonna's like a virgin,
Yep.
and then there was and then in Pulp Fiction, where he talks about the hamburgers in
Yes, I love Pulp Fiction.
yeah, all of the at least they kind of make it real. As far
Yeah,
as they have, I mean, these guys are badasses with guns and they're, criminals or whatever, and they're talking about what they call hamburgers in other countries.
exactly.
And then, what was another guy who's really good for that, who's got really good dialogue? Uh, Elmore Leonard. If you've ever read an Elmore Leonard novel,
Oh no.
it's not the same, but like I said, he hasn't written my favorite books, but he was one of my favorite authors because everybody talks in his novels and if you've seen any of his shows like Justified or whatever.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I've seen Justified.
yeah, that's Elmore Leonard. The way everybody talks is really it feels very real to me, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
I want to whenever I'm writing my first draft when everybody talks, it's just to get the information on the page. And then I'll go through and I'll adjust it and try to make it more interesting, to make it more real, to the reader. Like, I try not to have one character just kind of spit out the plot. I like to
Yeah.
kind of have everybody talk around it so that the guy and whoever's reading it, they get the gist, they know what's going on, but it's not like, all right, yeah, okay, I get it.
Like it also helps if you like whether in your comic or your script, if you have a lot of characters, if you actually kind of spread the dialogue out a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like if you have one character that's saying all of this, like a majority of the conversation, you break it up and you give it to other characters, and then it feels like they're being utilized a bit more.
yeah, because you want to try to avoid everybody having the same personality, and if
Yep,
you give everybody something to say, then you can adjust how they say it, and
exactly.
that's how you can give them, a different personality. How you
Hmm.
can separate one person from another.
Yeah. And I mean, they do that kind of like, if you watch Avengers and you actually think about how the dialogue is dispersed there, like if there's a big conversation, you have, Hawkeye saying something, you have Cap saying something, everybody's saying a little bit of the plot, moving it forward. So then it gives the illusion that all of the characters have weight and they're all involved in this, this film that we're watching, this story.
That's why I don't like when you see characters. You have one, you'll have a Mary Sue character that's just good at everything,
Yeah.
and that tends to be what happens. Is since they're good at everything, they give them all the lines because
Yeah.
since they're good at everything, they're the expert on everything. So then it's always up to them to explain it. Even if someone else is the other expert, well, you have to make this person the best. Since you have to make this person the best, they have to be better than everyone else.
Hmm.
So they even if you have an expert at something, that person is the Mary Sue is always the bigger expert.
Oh, jeez.
Even though they know everything,
And I
they're
mean, I thought Marvel did a good job at that. Like, earlier on,
Mhm,
they'd have, there's Hank Pym, and then you have, Iron Man, and you have, all these people, and there's kind of a place, like, just like in real life, there's other people that are better than you at your job.
mhm.
And I thought they showed that pretty well, you know. Like Iron Man was pretty good at making stuff, like not as much as he is, now in the films,
Mhm.
but putting his suits together, all that. Then you have Hank Pym doing his stuff, and it's like totally different,
It,
things, but there's a place where they're at on the scales.
you would never have Tony Stark coming into Hank Pym's lab and telling him how to shrink stuff.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
not at
I'm
all.
smarter than you, so the Pym particles actually work this way, and blah blah blah. And
Yeah,
well, I'm gonna put it in my suit.
exactly.
Something I've noticed recently that drives me freaking insane the last couple of years is this whole thing about how they really talk about all of the super geniuses in the Marvel universe. They talk about how everybody knows what number they are. Like Moon Girl is suddenly the number one smartest person in the
Yeah,
Marvel
no way.
universe,
No
and
way.
the guy that's the new Hulk, I can't remember.
Amadeus
Amadeus
Cho.
Cho.
Yeah.
He's like, man, I'm only like number four.
Yeah.
It's like everybody
No.
knows exactly where they rank in the Marvel
Yeah, no
universe.
way. And I mean, that's so weird now because, like, before, like, I'd say, like, what was it, the 90s run of Namor? Like, they had Iron Fist and Namor, and then you have Tony Stark, and they're all, they all kind of have their own businesses.
Hmm.
Like, there's Stark doing his thing, you have Iron Fist running his business. And it was almost like they were kind of, like doing, it was like competition. Just like in real life, you have the store across the street and the one beside you. And it was, they were competing constantly and there was interactions between all three of them. And it was fascinating.
They tried to do that, I guess, with a few years ago when was it Parker Industries and Peter Parker suddenly was had his own company, and
Yeah.
he was up against Stark Industries or whatever. He was up against Stark, and then he was just like, yeah, I'll just drop it because whatever happened with I guess Mephisto or I don't know. I didn't really follow it that close, but I remember reading a couple of issues where it was like he was, at different parties with Tony Stark, and it was all of a sudden it was his first year as a startup, and he was already competing
Yeah.
with Tony Stark, and then something I can't remember what the whole deal. It had to do with the one more day
Oh
deal,
no.
and it was and I remember he dropped the whole company or whatever. He just instead of trying to fix the problem, the easiest thing to do for him was just to let the company go under, and all of his
Oh,
employees are now out of work, and that was his big solution.
mm, like I stopped for the most part. Like I would read every single Spider-Man issue that would come out, and then that one more day nonsense hit, and like they completely lost me. Like I don't really read. I'm not up with any of the Spider-Man stuff now. It's crazy. Like one minute you're reading every single issue, and then you just like drop off the map. It's
Yeah,
different for sure.
I was like that, and let's see, my big thing was when I was at the peak of my collecting was Uncanny X-Men. I had a good
Mhm.
long run of those, and that's when like Jim Lee was doing it, and Chris Claremont was writing it, I think, and some of the big artists that went to Image when they were on the books, Will Sportatio and all of them. So that's when I was reading those, and I couldn't, those were awesome at the time, and I wish it would go. And it was all big adventures and super energy weapons and big guns and all that, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And now it's like, oh, we're fighting the patriarchy.
Oh no. Excuse me. Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah. Right. So let's see. Uh, Man, talked about your book and everything. So, what are your favorite books right now that you're reading?
I'd have to say the Magic Order. The current. Yep. The current Venom run. That's pretty good. And other than that, the only thing I follow like regularly would probably be Spawn, and
Have you
that's
been?
about it.
Are you all caught up? Like, I had maybe the first, I don't know, 10 or 15. I think a couple of years ago I sold my whole collection, everything I had. I had probably 1,500 comics.
Whoa.
I just sold everything. I had some good ones too. I had a couple of the first Jim Lee X-Men. I had the first Deadpool, the first appearance of Deadpool. I had I had a ton of really good stuff. All from, I mean, nothing like I never had any like the first Spider-Mans, any of that kind of stuff. But it was. I look back on it now and I'm like, man, I can't believe I got rid of those. I see people talking about it. I'm like, oh, I remember that one. Yeah, that was such a great issue. And then it's like, man, I can't believe I sold all my comics.
Oh no.
And now I'm rebuilding to the chagrin of my wife.
Oh jeez.
But I'm trying to. I mean, my collection is about 3 boxes right now, not full boxes, small like the short boxes.
Mm-hmm.
But that's over a course of 2 years. So I think I had a lot more than that before when I was a kid.
Oh, the other thing that I do follow is also Lady Death. And I've gotten most of the new ones that they put out through Kickstarter and all that.
Well, that's cool.
That's still really good. Because I remember not watching, but like well, they had this like a film that came out for Lady Death,
Mm-hmm.
and that was kind of my first introduction to it. Like I didn't know the comics were out at the time, but the movie, is kind of a cheaper made animated film, but I thought the premise was interesting, and then ended up picking up the books, and much better. I really enjoyed those. So
Well, that's cool. the one that I've been on since the beginning recently is the Silencer on DC.
Oh yeah, I've
And
seen
it's
Zach do some of those reviews.
yeah, it's actually one of the few things we agree on.
I've
I
actually tried to find that, but my shop does not have any copies.
really.
No.
So yeah, that's it's kind of it's not really Punisher-ish, or like she's not going around catching bad guys or anything like that. But it's a really neat story, and she's got like a really cool power. So it's a good action adventure comic,
Yeah.
and it's and I'm trying since she just came out. Right now, I'm trying to be a completist. Like I have all of her issues. She did a couple of Nightwing. She was in Nightwing a couple of issues, so I picked up those. So while I can, I'm gonna see if I can just keep a run of her. And that's the one that I really, the one series that I really follow is that one. I try to
Yeah.
keep that one. They try to they're gonna try. They've already tried. Or they already done it. The annual they retconned her into Batman.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did it because it's the basic story is she's been around for years, working for Ra's al Ghul in that whole
Oh
organization.
no.
So
That's kind of the default in DC.
yeah, so she's been an assassin working for them, and then it's the standard story. It's like, oh, I'm gonna get out. I don't want to be in it anymore.
Oh
I'm gonna
no.
get out and start a family, and I'll do this last job, and once she gets
Basically
done,
John
and then
Wick.
they bring her back exactly, and then they bring her back in,
Oh
and
geez.
she doesn't want. They reluctantly bring her back in. So I mean it's the basic story, but the character's really cool the way they did it, and I like the story. It's one of those things where I was like, she can't be doing secret assassin shit, behind her husband's back forever. I mean,
Yeah,
that only goes so far. I mean, you can only suspend so much disbelief.
exactly.
I've actually liked the story though. It's actually been really good. The art's been pretty good. It's a good action adventure kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
And that in that sense, me and Zach actually agree on that one. But there's been other ones like uh, uh Kick Ass, the new Kick Ass.
Oh, that's awful.
Actually, I liked it. I still collect it. I think it's pretty decent. But
Well, is it the Hit Girl stuff or is it the other one?
it's well, basically, the story is it takes place in the same universe, and she
But
wears
it's
the
that other lady.
yeah, but
Okay.
she wears the costume, and he got confused by it. But reading the book, she wears the costume as kind of a like a decoy. So if she gets caught, then instead of everybody thinking because she was a military, kind of special forces type, she puts the costume on, and then people will just think she's some, dumbass kid. And that's kind of it's kind of like a decoy thing. So she can do the kick ass thing with the costume that I guess she bought online or whatever she acquired, and then people it kind of lowers their guard, and I mean there's more to it. I'm not gonna justify the whole comic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got its good points, it's got its bad points. I didn't think it was as terrible as he did.
Well, I guess the thing that gets me is that I really loved how that series ended. And then, you saw Hit Girl was kind of going on her own way.
Hmm.
And I thought that was just like the perfect part to stop at. And the main character becomes a police officer. I mean, it was just really a really good ending, in my opinion. And it's always hard to start something and to figure out how to finish it.
Yeah, I
So
haven't.
it's just kind of weird to see it go on.
Yeah, I've seen the movies for the original Kick-Ass. I don't think I've ever read the comics.
Oh yeah, it's good. You should check it out sometime.
Yeah, and I'm following the Hit Girl now, where she's doing missions in different countries. I read the first run, and I've got the next few. What happens is I'll buy comics, and I won't have time to read everything. So they kind of pile up, and then I'll be like, all right, now that I've got a decent run on this title, then I'll go through them, and I'll just read them all as a run, and then everything kind of backs up like that.
Nice. Like the backlog always gets longer.
Oh my god, I'm never gonna finish it. Like I like Exo Manowar from Valiant,
Hmm.
and I've got I read I know I read a good run of those, and then it's another one that's just been kind of piling up.
Do
And
you remember like they had an Exo Man of War and like Iron Man video game?
no, I don't.
It was really, I'm pretty sure it was with Iron Man. But like they team up and in the game you can like switch characters. That was very fascinating.
Wow, how did they get that?
Because I think like when Exo Man of War came out, it was fairly popular and they kind of just paired up with Marvel. I don't know.
That'd be really cool pair up.
Yeah.
Is there-
I also really loved there's this DC versus Marvel comic that came out, like a little mini series.
Oh yeah.
I absolutely love that. There's no way you could get that made now though.
Well, I think every once in a while they got to get that hair up their ass. Like, yeah, we'll do a little team up. Because I think what they do is they vote, and they're like, all right, who would beat who, and then they do like a short run on it.
Yeah, like they had little ballots and you could fill it out and send it in, or they had early AOL
Yeah,
where you could email.
I remember that.
Oh, dude, the sound of AOL starting up, and then you're just waiting. You're just sitting there waiting for something to pop up.
So, do you have a must read? Like, if anybody asked you, hey, what should I pick up? I haven't been doing comics in a while. What should I pick up?
Ooh. I would probably say, I usually say to people Watchmen or V for Vendetta. Those are ones that you can like pick up a graphic novel. And they might have also seen the movie, so then that's a good jumping point, I think, for people. 300's good too, but the art style, sometimes it's hard for people to pick it up. So
Yeah.
I usually just prefer Watchmen or V for Vendetta.
Is there a difference you find when you're writing a screenplay script versus a comic script? Do you use the same kind of format, or do you change it up?
Well, I have sort of like a modified format when I do comic scripts. Like it reads like a regular screenplay would, but it's a lot more. I guess you could say downsized. Like there's a lot less, but you still get the same beats. And the pacing's a lot different. Like the way I see a comic is like a single episode of TV.
Mm-hmm.
So then you think, okay, here's this episode of The Sopranos. Here's what happens in Act 1. Here's what happens in Act 2, roughly the middle of the story. And then the third act where you wrap everything up. But then you leave kind of like little breadcrumbs that will lead into the next episode. So when writing, I always like to have a clear beginning, middle, and end, and then kind of like a little cliffhanger that leads into the next issue.
Somebody was asking me about beats one time because I like to hit. It's kind of hard to describe. It's like you got to hit your beats when you're drawing, when you're writing, and it's always that. I do the same thing. It's like the beginning, middle, and end, a three act kind of thing. And when somebody asks me, it's like, what I always bring up is have you ever seen the A-Team?
Yes.
The TV show? It's like that is a very clear hit your beats.
Mm-hmm.
Because every show more or less is the same. It starts off with the guy who's going to hire the A-Team the farmer is on his way to deliver his vegetables. The bad guy comes in and blows up his truck and says, you sell me your farm or I'm going to kill your family. And then
Yep.
they go and they find the A-team. The A-team shows up. They mess up the bad guy's place of work. And then, then they get captured. And then they build the thing. And then they, turn the tables on the bad guys. And then at the end, the bad guys get arrested and they escape because the military is coming to get them. I said, if you watch, they hit that same beat every single time. And it's just the way the show works. And you could say, oh, it's boring, but and sometimes it does, because a lot of times it seems like it's this, every episode's the same.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the show was super popular. Everybody liked the show. They just would change the setting, they'd change the business, and they'd change, the name of the bad guy.
Exactly.
And that's as an example, those are beats for your story. You don't have to hit all those same beats, but that's an example of the writers are doing the same thing, and these are the beats they're hitting. This is what, when you watch an A-Team episode, this is what you want to see, because this is what you've seen already. So it's like a little movie every time.
Yeah, and one thing that I like to do is that I like to start off with something that really grabs you. So, like in The Good Night, you start off, and on the first page, like, you see the wreckage of the room, and you see a poster. And a fun fact about the poster, which is also kind of on my little icon on this Google Hangout, VHS Killers. That's actually another comic that you'll see pop up. It's in a slightly different universe, but excuse me. But once you get to that story, it's basically about two brothers and a sister. And the two brothers are in the band, and the sister is kind of like the cameraman.
Mm-hmm.
And from this poster, nobody's really going to be able to tell now. But later on, they're going to see what time period that poster takes place in when referring to the overall timeline. Because in this poster, that band, VHS Killers, they're already established and well-known enough to actually be on posters in people's rooms. So it'll kind of show what time that The Good Night takes place. And The Good Night, it basically lays out where everything starts, basically.
Okay, so in another one, just kind of spitballing, you would see the VHS Killers before they had formed or as they're forming.
Yeah.
And it would give you a sense of the timeline.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, that's really cool.
And I think when you start, you open up the page and you're going to see already this room is wrecked, and you're jumping right into the action.
Mm-hmm.
And you see Alexander with the sword pointed to Queen Belladonna. And then you get into kind of the stuff. And then already, bam, the kid's kidnapped by page 3.
Okay.
The story started. So now it's just getting the other members together to retrieve this kid.
Yeah, I'm working on one. I started it with a cold opening. And it was, I kind of set it up like a Columbo mystery, where the crime happens right in the first scene. It's a couple of pages, and it seems like almost an impossible scenario. And so it's a couple of pages, and the crime happens, and then it jumps right to another action scene where something else is going on completely unrelated, or it seems like it's completely unrelated. And eventually you find out that there's a connection. But you get that cold opening, and I'm writing it similar to like a TV show. You get that cold opening, you're going to get the hero action sequence, and then they're going to start working on, okay, what was that mystery, and why did that happen, and that's how the story commences from there.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and going along with TV, like you said, when you're writing a script for television, you have this first page, which they call the teaser.
Mm-hmm.
And with where commercials, are placed, this teaser is usually that first small little bit you see before it shows the title credits and cuts to a commercial. So let's say, have you seen a show called Hannibal?
I seen a couple of episodes. I remember when it was on a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And so you start out that first episode, you're already jumping into it and you see basically the crime.
Mm-hmm.
And, the FBI are there and they're kind of just going over. And then, bam, it cuts the title credits. So you've already seen this crime that's taken place. Uh, and you're already jumping into it. And then you cut to a commercial and you come back and you meet Will Graham, your main character.
Mm-hmm.
So, right when people click onto a show, you want to really grab them. And so the teaser is basically there. You want it to be action packed, and then bam, and then you slow it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think comics are missing that element. Like you usually start off and it's a lot of mundane stuff, and you don't get that injection of like adrenaline in those
Mm-hmm.
first couple of pages. Like, whoa, the city's getting trashed. There's a 10-foot tall creature. It's just like, okay, well, waking up out of
I,
bed.
I like when they do, and a show that does this really well, and it's not is NCIS, and
Yeah.
it's more, it's not so much they do that kind of scene, but just before, when the show starts, they do that little like boom, and it's a couple of seconds that shows you, that gives you like a little 2-second preview
Yeah.
of something about to happen, and they'll do that just like a bump just before the credits or something like that,
Mhm.
or just at the very beginning of the show. And that really kind of keeps you going too, because a lot of it's a procedural, so a lot of stuff is them, investigating, and I mean they keep the action going pretty well. But that little thing, right, the first thing when you turn the show on is they do that 2-second little, like almost slow motion action sequence that
Mhm.
happens later in the show.
Yeah. And that's great because then you can start off on a great note and people are like, whoa, stuff just happened. And then when you slow it down and you kind of get to know these characters, like you're going to it's going to be pretty slow for a little while. But
Mhm.
then by like about halfway into the comic, you want to start picking it up again, or else you're going to lose people.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You got to have if it's all of them sitting around talking, then and nothing happens. There's no action. I mean, like it just gets boring. Nobody wants to read that.
Yeah, and the other, uh, if you're going to do that, where you're just kind of doing this really slow, mundane type of stuff, you really have to have someone, a good writer, that can write interesting things to say in that moment, or else it's just going to come off as really sleepy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and if you're having them doing like mundane stuff around the house, you have to to me, have them use their powers to do a mundane thing. If you've got,
Exactly.
yeah, you gotta, if you're having, they're all sitting around, they're just having breakfast. You can have Wolverine, slicing bread with his claws, or somebody, whoever's got a firepower is toasting something or cooking something.
Hmm.
Just as they're in the middle of a conversation, because then you're looking at something else like, oh, that's kind of funny, and it gets your attention and keeps you interested in the thing.
Exactly. Or actually use the time to move the story forward, or maybe
Yes.
talk about something that's going to happen later on. That's
Mhm.
always
Yes.
helpful as well. Oh, jeez.
All right. Well, we've been at it for a good hour. And since it is the indie hour, we're gonna wrap it up. Do you have any questions? We got Humble Marty in the chat's been with us for a little while. Thanks for showing up, Marty. Do you have any questions you want to ask our guest? Now's the time because I don't know, is Drawn and Quartered on tonight? I'm just trying to figure where everybody's gonna go. Well, not everybody. I mean, it's not like we have a huge audience. But why don't you give us another rundown of the Good Night? Now, the name. That's what I was going to ask you about. The name, the Good Night. Is it
Mm-hmm.
like just a play on Good Night because it's like the teddy bear and he's protecting the kid and it's kind of like that's kind of the impression I got. Is
Like
it like
it definitely has a dual purpose, I would say, because Alexander, he's kind of displaced in time to where he's in this current time period, and he's connected. I don't know how much I should say, but like to a historical character,
hmm,
and he's going to have to make a choice on whether or not he's going to continue following the knight's code. And so it's kind of has dual purpose, so it works out.
all right? So, well, I want to thank you for coming on,
Thank you
and
for having me.
the comic looks really cool. From the images, we'll post some more up on Twitter. And just keep us appraised. Let us know what's going on.
Will do.
Actually, you know what? I do have. Oh, I do have the IGG. So let me do a screen share, and we can have a look at the IGG here.
Sounds good.
That's it. All right. So let's do a screen. Hmm. All right. So let's see. Entire screen. Let's see. And all right. So here's the Indiegogo. Do we have it up on the screen? No.
Yep, it's
Oh,
up.
there we go. It's a little delay on the other computer we're using. All right, so we got this is the Good Night, and we'll play the trailer again right here. All right, so that was the trailer for the Good Night. Let's see, we got 16 days left. We're only at $120. Let's spread this around, Marty, for us. I'll spread it around. We definitely want to get it up to your goal, $5,000. Let's see, we'll make sure we share that later. Let's see, the Good Night, Nightmare Realm #1. Here, a trail of blood, tragedy, and misfortune follow an immortal knight hell-bent on saving his master. Let's see. Like I said, it looks really cool. I like the art in it. I like the tone that I'm seeing.
Mhm.
It's a really cool picture.
I
So,
just love how our artists, how expressive the faces are. It says so much with so little.
yeah, it's a really cool. I love that bear face is. It's really beautiful, and
Hmm.
it's very realistic, very like photorealistic art style.
Yeah, and especially with the context, like I've done some of my own lettering, but for this, the only reason it's not lettered is that I want a little bit different look with the lettering.
Hmm.
Like I don't know if you've read Kingdom Come, but I
I
want
do have a
something
copy. Yeah.
more indicative of that lettering style, uh, for sure.
I have that in my library right now. I'll go check that out later.
Nice.
Get a sense of what you're.
But like
See.
in the context, like Queen Belladonna, who you see there, she's basically been planning this sort of revenge against Eric,
Mm-hmm.
and she's planning on kidnapping his only son.
Huh.
And that character Jack, who Alexander's protecting there, he's half dragon.
Oh wow.
And we don't call them dragons in the story, but you'll get the sense that it's basically a dragon. And his father sealed his dragon form, so
Mm-hmm.
he only appears as a human. But she is going to sort of kidnap him and use him as sort of like a bargaining chip with the dragons
Okay.
and get kind of get back at Eric for some stuff that's happened in the past.
All right. Let's go over your tiers real quick. $5, you get a digital copy. It's going to be the book. Your schedule will be completely done, and
Yep,
in July.
we're halfway done with the arc
Okay.
so far.
You got until July. That's delivery. Your estimated delivery is July. $15. That gets you okay. They get you a physical book,
Yep,
the signed cover, specific cover, cover A. Let's see. For $25, you're getting two signed books with two different covers. Let's see. $50 gets you a signed cut. Get you what is that? 5 books?
correct.
All right. So
Well,
you get
it's 4 books and then the
on a
T-shirt.
t-shirt. And a t-shirt. Okay, I see. That's actually a really good deal right there, guys. If you're gonna back this book, I would say the best deal for the money is your Squire at $50. 4 books. That's really. I mean, you're not gonna find that one. I've seen 4 books and a t-shirt, and you got for $100. You got 8 books and 2 t-shirts. Start giving those out.
Yeah,
Let's
and
see.
that's kind of like the night tier is basically like what you'd call like the family pack, sort of.
Hmm.
Or you want to get a copy, you and your friends go in on it. And the T-shirts are going to be made in-house. Uh,
Okay.
I do screen printing, and I have all the equipment needed for it. And we've done big shirt orders, like 1,000 plus,
That's that's
for
awesome.
different people. And there's manual presses and the automatics.
Yeah.
So depending on the amount, we can do it.
It's cool. Every physical copy is signed. It looks like
Correct.
every
And
tier.
if we can get enough, I can get the artist out and he can sign those too. But
Well,
for sure, you're getting my signature.
yeah, that's
So
that is.
yeah.
There you go. Cover A. Oh, you don't have that stuff ready yet.
No.
Cover
Cover
B.
A
There you go.
is going to be by the artist that's doing the interiors on the book.
Okay. And cover B is a different artist.
Yep. Pablo Romero.
Okay. Yeah. That's pretty cool. There's a T-shirt. Design not final, so you might get something else. Let's
Yep.
see.
But it will for sure be the same image that is on the cover for cover B. So you will get this rendition of Queen Belladonna.
Sorry if I'm making everybody dizzy going up and down the screen. I get my attention is like, oh, all right. No, that looks really cool. Is it gonna be different? You get different colors, or all the shirts gonna be white?
All
I
of the
almost like that.
shirts will be white.
Okay, that's cool. All right, go through. Let's see some more of the art. That's pretty cool. You're halfway done. You have a printer all lined up and everything all set already, or?
We have 2 that we're looking at currently. I'm trying to find one that is in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
But if not, I know a lot of people say Print Ninja is
Okay.
good.
I think that's what Malin's books on Print Ninja. All right, I'm waiting on that one. All right, so that looks really cool. We really like that. So thank you for coming on. Every everybody that's in my thing, make sure we order some books. Let's see, 16 days left. Let's get her to her goal. This is it's a really cool looking project. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks
Uh,
for having me.
yeah, no problem. We're gonna
And
wrap
one
it up.
more thing,
Oh, yep. Go ahead.
if you don't mind, I will
Nope, not
be
at all.
on John Malin's channel on Friday,
Sweet.
and
Yeah.
I think the time we have set is. Let me check real quick. I wrote it down just to be sure. Let's see. Okay, it'll be 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Cool. All right. So everybody, make sure to check that out. On John Malin, he'll probably actually go over some of the art and he's more of an art he's more of an art critic than I am. But I mean, this looks amazing to me.
Thank
It's
you.
it's photorealistic almost. I love just this little picture here, the teddy bear, and then the girl gets me. It's really they get some. You were talking about expression. You get some real expression on the teddy bear.
I know. Thanks.
All right, all right. Thanks again. You've been watching Indie Dave. Do you have your Twitter and your Facebook or wherever it is you want people to check out your stuff?
You can follow me on Twitter. I do a lot of updates frequently. It's at Crystal McGhee, and that's Crystal. And then McGhee, McGhe.
You're going to be updating the YouTube page at all?
Yes, the Mystical Comics one, I'll basically be putting together like little short documentary clips of the behind the scenes process.
Cool.
And I'm currently editing those. And you can usually find me. It's McGee is my personal YouTube channel, and I'm gonna start putting up some different content over there, which is going to be kind of more like vlog style stuff, just kind of talking to the camera about the writing process, more updates for the comics, stuff like that.
All right. Well, it was fun having you. Like I said, the project looks great. Everybody, make sure I'll try to make sure I'll check you out on Malin's channel. I'll probably be working that night, but we'll try to check it out. You can like I said, you can follow her on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Indie Dave Comics. Subscribe. Check out make sure you hit the notifications. Make sure you hit the like button, and y'all have a good night.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Let's see. There we go. All right.